And hello, everyone. We're back again today with our second conversation. And I have to say, like I said last week on Thursday, these are my first shows coming back after a horrid beginning of the month. And I am enjoying every minute of it. And of course, I'm not going to be enjoying the heat here in Houston this week. I think we have 100 degrees coming up with heat indexes of 110 plus. God, I love the humidity here. But we are here today with LaVigne, if I got that right, I hope. And a great writer. She's written many titles. We're going to find out about her and possibly in the future where you can get her books or if they're out and now. But I think we talked a little bit before. I think they're being, I don't want to say re-release, but you have your site down so you can get everything back to normal.
Go online and find them. I just don't have as many as I've written. So
there we go.
Revamp.
There we go.
This year.
Well, what got you started into writing?
Well, I've always been in creative work, and so I worked in the film industry. I was a photographer, underwater portrait photographer, and architectural interior photographer after I left the film industry. And I always knew I was supposed to write, but I kept, chickening out. And then finally, well, it used to be different back in the day. They'd be like, send query letters and all these things. And you thought, how will I survive and feed myself? And so eventually, I thought, oh, it's time. And I started, and now I'm in the right lane. So it's good. And so I've been doing it for quite a while.
I remember submitting query letters, and then it's like, you know what? I should just do this on my own.
And now it's a thing. So it's really cool. Even in the time, that I've been doing it, it continues to change. The industry continues to change. But even in the last 2 decades, I lose track of time. But just self-publishing, and industry publishing and trad publishing and hybrid and all that stuff. It's grown, and it's actually pretty awesome what we can do just as an entrepreneur in general.
This is very, very true. So what would you say was your biggest inspiration to get you started?
I guess, well, I did, my whole story, and I'm trying keep focused because I always have way too many words and way too many stories and side stories. But, when I had originally moved back to South Florida I was living in New York and working in the film industry, and I started coming down and really re-embracing where I came from, which, like, wait a second, suddenly carrots and even though you guys are giving us a run for our money with the heat index over there, but like the humid weather and the palm trees and hot pink and turquoise, all these things that as a teenager you're like, ugh, like whatever, you don't think much about. Suddenly I'm like, oh, this place is so weird, but also it's weirdly home, and so I liked a lot of authors. I liked a lot of stuff, South Florida sort of tropical authors growing up. So some that worked for places like Miami Herald, so Edna Buchanan and Carl Hyacin, and now there's a bunch, and I won't stop because then I'll leave somebody out. But I liked this kind of these sort of detective and mystery novels always, and especially these ones set where I grew up. And so I just started realizing I want to write books like that. And I started, and then I stopped for about 7 years and became a photographer. And then one day I started again. And so now it's pretty fun. So I guess inspiration, a lot of it has come from the place. I mean, I've written a lot of books that have nothing to do with Florida, but that was sort of my original initial sort of, this is where I'm going. And then I stopped, and then I wrote about all kinds of other stuff, and now I'm back. And so, but that's always been the underlying thing.
Now, with the film industry, do you think any of that had any parts to writing any of these books? Or
I mean, sometimes, I can definitely, I know the world really well, so it's kind of fun to incorporate that. But I realize that sort of all of the creative industries there's a through line, even construction, there's sort of a through line with project creation, and, it's just sort of different style of people and different modes, but they're all kind of variation on the theme. So it taught me how to work for really long periods of time without having a life, which is why it's hard now, because I try and have a life now, and that's difficult to do both, to work like a maniac and also have life balance.
I know what it means to work like a maniac, and you really don't get a break to yourself.
Yeah, and I have a family now, so it's like, oh, how do I do this? And I had a coach, actually, this really awesome writing person, Becca Syme. She runs a Strengths for Writers program, and I had a call with her. She goes, maybe you just need to accept that your style is sort of sprint and rest. That you're just not a slow and steady person, which I know. I aspire, but I know that's not who I am. But she's like, just embrace it, some version of that. I'm like, okay. So I'm trying to figure it all out.
Well, now I have to ask, why crime? Was there anything that got you inspired into the crime scene, or?
Well, never look me up.
Does the FBI come knocking on your door because of your web searches?
Oh, I think many of us, right? Like, no one could ever look at our web searches. I always find that even like YouTube doesn't know what to aggregate me, because sometimes I'd be working on like a romance cowboy book, and so I'm looking, suddenly they're like, do you want horse feed? And I'm like, no, I just need to look up some stuff about horses. And then it's like faking your own death, a lot of faking your own death. And then they're like, passports, like, yeah, they really don't have a read on me at all. But I think that without realizing it, my mom always read a lot of, I think, mysteries with that. And I never really realized that. And my grandmother, my paternal grandmother, was a writer, and I didn't know that until I was older. But I think just the women, I think I just must have a gene for sort of mystery, crime, and that overly, not nosy, but like just one of those brains that wants to put pieces together, like a brain, like one of those boards, crime boards. And so it's just impossible for someone to say something and me not to think of a million things that could mean, or just want to solve things, which I'm actually a very like good-hearted person, like I want people to do the right thing. So it is actually strange. That's why I struggled with, I think, going into mystery for a long time, because I'm like, oh, I don't want to put bad stuff in the world. I want people to do the right thing if we did that. But, then there's always like an inner pirate in us too, or I think that's like, yeah, but we shouldn't have to follow stupid rules, right? So
No,
I don't know.
Now here's a question for you, because I know me and some other people have done this before. When you go like on a plane trip or train ride, do you actually see somebody there and you say, well, that person may have done something, and then do you do things like that just with the imagination, just let it run wild?
Yeah, but yeah, I think I have a fairly decent imagination, and now with the phone, where it's they'll send you little neighborhood things. I'm like, oh, why is there a SWAT team there?
So you do have fun with the imagination.
Oh, yeah. That, a lot of people ask, I think, especially writers, where do you get ideas? And I think for some of us, it's like, oh, how do you stop the ideas? Because you and I could probably go outside and sit on a park bench and be like, and do that all day long, right? Like,
Oh, for sure. I
she looked,
definitely have done that before. It's like, that person probably buried somebody in their backyard, or
they look too normal. Actually, that's one of the things I think in my the book, the second book, because right now I have one that just went to the editor last night, book one in the series, my new series, and it's called Sunshine State of Crime, and middle of book two, working on it and prepping book three. But I think in book two, I'm like I like the idea of, well, I like a lot of ideas. Say people faking their own death and starting over, and but a lot of times people that look really normal, and those aren't actually my normal characters, but sort of auxiliary characters. And it's like, they're not. No, stop trusting those people that just look perfect, because they're not.
no.
Those don't ever get to be my main characters. But I'm like, everyone's much more interesting.
Now I gotta go with this part. You said the Sunshine State, and I do know a little bit about it. I know they have the gators and the pythons. Do you use any of that with part of your story?
Oh yeah. So I could drive a half an hour, 15 minutes to a half an hour to hit the Everglades, depending on traffic. Right to my right to my east is the Atlantic, and straight to my west is the Everglades. And so yeah, this first book is a lot about. It was sort of inspired by Florida Man. I don't know if you're at all familiar with sort of. We have like a special flavor of criminal here that if you ever just Google it when you have some time, Florida Man, and you're going to see some real special mugshots with headlines to match. Anyway, so the book I'm doing now is kind of the book one that I just sent off last night has like a reality show set in the Everglades. It's kind of like a Duck Dynasty. And she's the main character is investigating a missing cast member. But yeah, so it's fun. I get to go on lots of tangents. Like, when did alligator wrestling start? Because when I was a kid, we have like the Seminole Reservation in Miccosukee, and like you always are going to a alligator wrestling show. And a lot of these things are that's normal. Airboats, of course. I mean, I don't own an airboat, but that's normal stuff to see. But
I can't picture alligator wrestling. I don't think I'd want to even try that.
I rewatched a video last night, and it's crazy because they're not super smart creatures, they're just not. And they have tiny brains, and so you can kind of, I guess, they're 80% muscle. I learned last night. They have a 3-pound jaw compression. So their head, even if their head just like bangs into you, it can break your face, break your bones. But they're also they can be fast. So don't try and outrun one. But they also can kind of be. There's all these tactics, but basically, yeah, it's crazy. They take their jaws and I was just watching this guy out in the field. It's amazing. But they're not really wrestling. They just kind of like contain them. But this is his head. This is his head in my hands. Yeah.
People do not try this stuff at home. We're telling you now, do not try it at home.
But look it up and watch a video because it's amazing.
That you can do, but don't try it at home.
Yeah, especially, oh God, I'm always worried about accidentally finding a gator. I mean, we'll see them, but yeah.
We have some out here, but they tend to stay more in the lakes, and it's too much of a cement city out here now.
I never think of them being beyond here, but yeah, they definitely are. And my husband's always like, never go in a lake in Florida because there's an alligator always in one somewhere.
Now I have seen, believe it or not, because one of our creatures, the armadillo, I've actually seen them now in Georgia. Have they hit the Florida zone yet?
We have them, but I think I've probably only seen 3 in my lifetime. I'm actually remembering back to grade school. I remember running. In my head, it was like between my legs, but that seems weird. It's a very specific memory, but like one of the only times I've seen an armadillo. You see them more as like roadkill, but no, those are you guys's.
Yeah, like I said, now last time I was in Georgia, I was seeing them, and it's like, wow, they're migrating pretty fast. But I think like the python down there is migrating up north pretty fast too. So,
well, that's not native, so that's been that's a big problem for us. I mean, I've never seen one, but I know we read about them all the time.
Yeah, like I said, it's quite interesting.
It isn't, yeah. And we have iguanas, a huge iguana problem, which you might think that it's sort of a symbol of the tropics, but they actually aren't native. And so, especially if you're down in the Florida Keys, it's terrible because they don't have a lot of greenery. In the Keys, it's pretty harsh, and they eat everything. And so they're kind of cool, but they're also fairly destructive. So that's a real debate. Like, I don't like killing anything. I'm I like catch and release like mosquitoes sometimes. Not always. They don't always survive. But then
no,
there's
don't do not catch and release the mosquitoes. Kill them.
Well, I do half the time, but I feel bad. But yeah, but it's a real conundrum because there's so many iguanas, and people are like, you just have to shoot them. Although, interesting fact, I don't sort of. So when it's really, really cold here, they freeze they'll just freeze, and it goes into sort of a stasis, and they'll like fall out of the tree. And some people then go around and they collect them and they eat them. But so it could very well rain iguanas if you're ever visiting Florida in the winter.
That's actually good to know.
Yeah. I'm going to work it into a book at some point, but I haven't yet, which I'm very disappointed in myself about.
I'm sitting here thinking, it's like, who would eat an iguana? But I mean, I eat gator, so
you
never know.
100%. I mean, no one originally looked at a cow and thought, So, I mean, I don't think.
Beef.
Like, wow.
You do now. Now, where can people get your books at? I know you have your website up here.
Yep, I have my website. I'm always on Amazon. So I primarily do everything through Amazon, and you can always find me on all the regular channels, BookBub and Goodreads and all those places. And I am getting back into getting my newsletter up and regular this year. So you can just sign up there.
Now, the other question I like to ask, because I do know a lot of our listeners like signed copies. Can they get a signed copy from you through your website?
You know what? I am revamping it now. I mean, it's there, but it's going through like a zhuzh. So I will look into that, but you can always email me. I have not been doing that just because I have been I still a lot of ebooks over the last several years. And so I don't do that. But yeah, if you email me, I would love to do it.
Well, I know you have a lot that you're working on currently, and I look actually forward to reading some of the new work that you're going to be having coming out. But do want to thank you for coming on our show today. And I want to remind everybody, Thursday we are going to have AnchorCon. They were scheduled 2 weeks ago, but I unfortunately had to cancel because of my health issues. But we have them coming this Thursday. And for those that don't know, AnchorCon is up in Clayton, New York, on the northeast side of, I want to get this right, Lake Erie. Is one of the lakes. I'm not going to get myself in trouble. I'm just going to say one of the lakes out there. We will have them on Thursday. They'll be talking about some of the guests that they have coming to their show. And we have been with them since they started. So look forward to talking to them. But until our next show, everyone, adios.